We recognize that CVUUS gathers on the land of the Western Abenaki people. We respect their tradition, their spiritual relationship to the land, and we hope to learn from them how we can live together in peace and justice. Good morning. And a big welcome to CVUUS, the Champlain Valley Unitarian Universalist Society. Welcome to those of you here gathered with us in the sanctuary. Welcome to those of you on Zoom at home. And a special welcome to anyone who is here for the first or second time, either in the sanctuary or on Zoom. We have a guest book in the front, just outside the sanctuary that you can sign to learn a little bit more about us, and also there's a place in the chat to do that. My name is Becky Strum. I'm a member of this congregation, and this morning I'm going to be serving as worship associate. Our settled minister, the Reverend Barnaby Feeder, is on a 4-month sabbatical, and your worship ministry has planned 4 months of wonderful services. Today, I'm going to be serving as worship associate for Johanna Nichols, Minister Emerita of this congregation, and Steve Mayer, member of the congregation and concerned environmentalist. So many of you know I'm a theater practitioner, and one of the things I love about the theater is, you rehearse and plan and get everything ready, and then because it's live, sometimes things don't go quite as planned, and that's kind of exciting because everybody jumps in and makes it better. And that's kind of what happened for today. For the second time since our minister has been on sabbatical, we have needed to all come together and create a new worship for a Sunday service. Our worship leader was to have been Melody Brooks, who came down with COVID, and we had a whole service planned with drumming, and Elizabeth Golden was going to be her worship associate. And that has all been rescheduled for July, so that will happen. But when we learned about Melody, Abby Sessions, our fearless leader, took action. Joanna volunteered to come back. Steve jumped in, so I know we have a wonderful service for you today, and I just wanted to thank the rest of our tech team. We gather online on Mondays and put this together. Rich Wolfson, Richard Hopkins, Carl Lindholm, Steve Butterfield, and others. And a big thanks to our flower co-op for the beautiful arrangements. You see, we have real sunflowers. Pretty amazing. And thanks to Avi Frund, Helen Vanderberg, and all who helped to set up and usher, and Alan Moore for overseeing the safety and the social hour, Jerry Loney for Blue Jeans Sunday, Tim Giles for our accompanist this week. So each week, there are many, many pathways for and opportunities to connect outside of the Sunday services. And we are really starting to gear up. So there are lots of opportunities in your order of service. I am going to highlight a few kind of important ones. So if it takes a village to raise a child, then it takes a community to hold a rhubarb festival. We need your help to ensure this fundraiser is a community success. A portion of the proceeds go to Addison County's HOPE, so join in the fun while helping neighbors in need. We have had a version of the Rhubarb Festival for the past couple of years, but this year we're back in full. It's the first Saturday of June, June 4th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Please keep the Rhubarb Festival in mind as you start your spring garden. Pot up extra plants you might be thinning and start a few sets of seedlings for the sale. House plants are welcome too. If you have any questions, see Gail Muchow, Sue Rasmussen, or Dinah Smith. So, today, we have a lot going on today. First of all, we do have an upcoming service that needs to go through a rehearsal in the sanctuary immediately following this service. But today we have so much for you to do if everyone just comes downstairs for a congregational conversation during social hour in which you can give your ideas for landscaping our grounds. And after that, I see some blue jeans amongst you. We'll have our Blue Jeans Sunday, our annual effort to clean up our grounds, and there's pizza for lunch. So, Laura, our wonderful office manager, will be out of the office this week, representing Vermont at the World Service Conference of Al-Anon. During her absence, Chris will cover some basic office needs when she's on site on Tuesday and Friday mornings. Thanks to Priscilla for doing the blast, Brett for overseeing the order of service, and Alan for building use. You see, we just all jump in and help out, and that's one of the things I love about this congregation. Also, during the week, this Thursday and Friday, in the morning from 8 to 12, Middlebury High School is going to be doing some, I know what kind of testing it is, it's IB testing, because I used to do that myself. Next Sunday, this Thursday and Friday, so they're going to be in the fellowship hall at that time, and so there's no access to the fellowship hall next Thursday and Friday. Next Sunday, we have a wonderful service coming up with guest Mark Orton, Middlebury College's Dean of Religious Life, followed by a presentation on our proposed budget by our board for those interested during social hour. So before we get into worship, Priscilla Bremser has something she'd like to share with you.
Good morning. I'm here representing the board. As you may know, this year, the board took over the Canvas process, and it's all gone very well, and many thanks to Hannah Sessions and Mary Hadley, and also the rest of the board for working on that. As the Canvas wraps up, we're sort of shifting into budget planning mode. So as the Canvas wraps up, it seems likely that the board will be making some adjustments to the original aspirational budget that our wonderful finance team put together. The board meets once a month, and at our April meeting, the board had a really thoughtful and rewarding discussion about our congregation's values and expectations and aspirations. And at that time, we sort of took a step back and said, what should our priorities do as we go through this final budgeting process now that we have a better sense of, or will have a better sense of what the Canvas is bringing in? And we decided to focus on three things: a robust religious exploration program, vibrant musical offerings, which I think the Easter service last week suggests how that could look, and pretty exciting, and appropriate compensation for our employees in line with our values and principles as a congregation. So please do pay attention to opportunities to engage with us about the budget. We'll have the conversation about that next week. And then toward the end of May, we'll be sending out a warning with an agenda and proposed budget to all members. So have a look at that and feel free to contact any of us if you have any questions. Thank you.
worship this morning is by Joy Harjo. Remember the earth, whose skin you are. Red earth, black earth, yellow earth, white earth. We are earth. Remember the plants, trees, animal life, who all have their tribes, their families, their histories too. Talk to them. Listen to them. They are live poems. Remember the wind. Remember her voice. She knows the gin of the universe. Remember you are all people, and all people are you. We are Earth. Remember you are this universe, and this universe is you. Remember all is in motion, is growing in you. We are Earth. Remember language comes from this. Remember the dance language is that life is. Remember, we are Earth. Come, let us worship. Now it's the time where we light our flaming chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. And Steve is going to light the chalice. So join with me in reading the words either on your screen or in your order of service. Glory be to the earth and the wind. Glory be to the sun and the rain. Glory be to animals and children. Glory be to our holy flame, which calls us together as one. Thank you, Steve. So now stand as you are able, and we'll sing together in the gray, number 21, for the beauty of the earth.
That was a very quiet singing of that hymn. Because we have a lot to be grateful for the source of life. This morning, I am going to share a story from Bird. Oop, thank you. I can breathe. It's Bird Baylor. This was written in 1977, so you know it's an oldie, but to me one of my favorite stories. And we have other books by Bird Baylor in the Fenn House Chapel. So if you want to see more of them, they are definitely available. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Bird Baylor before sharing this story. Bird Baylor's books reflect a deep appreciation for the Native American culture she loved. Growing up in Tucson, she developed great respect for the natural world of the deserts and canyons around her, and she also became fascinated with Native American culture, including folklore and art. As a reporter for the Tucson Daily Citizen, she wrote features about the people on the Tohono O'odham Reservation. She turned to writing children's books. Throughout the 80s, she published at least one picture book annually, 4 of which won Caldecott honors. As she continued writing, she simultaneously fought to protect native wildlife and worked to help local Native American people in need. I have learned so much by walking or just sitting on a rock, she said. Beginning in the 1980s, Bird Baylor lived off the grid in an adobe house her friends helped her build on land southwest of Tucson. She got water from a wind-powered well. She did all of her writing on manual typewriters in a converted chicken coop studio. Her studio overlooked the Papalote Wash, a major migrant trail. Bird called out to an uncountable number of those passing through to offer water and food. In a word, hospitality. With a group called No More Deaths, she created the Bird Camp on her land to provide food and water to undocumented migrants from Mexico. The UU Church of Tucson is active with the No More Deaths movement. She died in June 16th, 2021, in Tucson, Arizona, at the age of 97. Writing in the Arizona Daily Star, Tony Davis called her the voice of the desert and its people, of anybody, whether Tohono, Hispanic, or Anglo, who truly lives in the desert, in the natural desert. So this is the story. And reading this changed my life. The way to start a day is this. Go outside and face the east and greet the sun with some kind of blessing or chant or song that you made yourself and keep for early morning. The way to make the song is this. Don't try to think what words to use until you're standing there alone. When you feel the sun, you feel the song too. Just sing it. But don't think you're the only one who ever worked that magic. The cave dwellers knew what to do. They sang to help the sun come up and lifted their hands to its power. A morning needs to be sung to. A new day needs to be honored. People have always known that. Didn't they chant at dawn in the sun temples of Peru? And leap and sway to Aztec flutes in Mexico? And drum sunrise songs in the Congo? Some people say there is a new sun every day, that it begins its life at dawn and lives for one day only. They say you have to welcome it. You have to make the sun happy. You have to make a good day for it. You have to make a good world for it to live its one day life in. And the way to start, they say, is just by looking east at dawn. When they look east tomorrow, you can too. Your song will be an offering. And you'll be one more person in one more place at one more time in the world, saying hello to the sun, letting it know you are there. If the sky turns a color sky never was before, just watch it. That's part of the magic. That's the way to start a new day. Now don't worry if you can't see the sun in the morning. I promise it's still there, and it will hear you.
Thank you, Johanna, for that beautiful story. I didn't know it. It's wonderful. Now is the time for our offering, where each month we share our plate with a nonprofit or other organization that shares our values. We'll share our collection today, this last Sunday of the month, with Living Lands and Waters. Their mission is to aid in the protection, preservation, and restoration of the natural environment of the nation's major rivers and their watersheds. So we have a basket up front for your donations. Online, on the screen, you see how you can make a donation online, so please give as generously as you are able. is from Melissa Salte, who is a member of the Board of Trustees of the Breadloaf Mountain Zen Center. And she was here at the April 10th service, and she wanted to let us know that she sends her sincere thanks for the warm welcome that she got from everyone here. She attended while she was in town for the Breadloaf Mountain Zen Center, and she so appreciated the countless friendly exchanges. So that's from Melissa, and we hope she'll come back again. And now for the many milestones and passages and joys and concerns that you have decided to keep to yourselves, we will all share a couple of minutes of silent meditation.
With a grasshopper eating sugar out of her hand, Mary Oliver asks, "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" To Unitarian Universalists, Mary Oliver is prophetic. Her poetry calls us to awareness, delights our imagination, pierces our heart, and ministers to our soul. Her words, so familiar to us, from Wild Geese, whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world calls to you over and over, announcing your place in the family of things. From In Blackwater Woods, with trees the pillars of light, to live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, and when the time comes, to let it go. From The Journey, there was a new voice that you slowly recognized as your own, that kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world. There is something to our right to claim her as our poet. Beacon Press, owned by the Unitarian Universalist Association, published 10 of her 21 volumes of poetry and one of her 6 books of prose. And there are many of her books of poetry and one of her books of prose in the CVUUS library on the lower level. So please do feel free to borrow them. On the cover of one volume, Brian Doyle wrote, "She is an artist with a riveted eye and an enormous heart, one of the nation's great spiritual sentinels." And on the cover of another, Stanley Kunitz wrote, "Her poetry reads like a blessing. Her special gift is to connect us with our sources in the natural world, its beauties and terrors and mysteries and consolations." Mary Oliver spent her entire life, over 50 years, observing the natural world, and through her poetry, linking together the human and natural world. She brings us into intimate relationship with the natural world in ways that we often don't stay put long enough to experience ourselves. Communing with herons, bears, ravens, tiger lilies, deer, owls, roses, daisies, the dipper, goldfinches, moss, grass, white pine. Common phenomenon we all notice, but mostly in passing. And she brings us into intimate relationship with ourselves, with her heart-stopping observations and questions. In her words, what I have learned so far: meditation is old and honorable, so why should I not sit every morning of my life on the hillside looking into the shiny world? Because properly attended to, delight as well as havoc is suggestion. Can one be passionate about the just, the ideal, the sublime, and the holy, and yet commit to no labor in its cause? I don't think so. Mark Long of the Association for the Study of Literature and Environment, of which Mary was an honorary member, wrote, "Oliver's life and work are at once inspiration and provocation, most acutely to those of us preoccupied with environmental concern, equity, and justice." This poem ends with the story she has been sharing with us for over 50 years. Here is a story to break your heart. Are you willing? This winter, the loons came to our harbor and died, one by one, of nothing we could see. A friend told me of one on the shore that lifted its head and opened the elegant beak and cried out in the long, sweet savoring of its life, which you, if you have heard it, you know is a sacred thing, and for which, if you have not heard it, you had better hurry to where they still sing. And believe me, tell no one just where that is. The next morning, this loon, speckled and iridescent and with a plan to fly home to some hidden lake, was dead on the shore. I tell you this to break your heart. I tell you this to break your heart, by which I mean only that it break open and never close again to the rest of the world. I tell you this to break your heart, by which I mean only that it break open and never close again to the rest of the world. I understand this poem as a warning and a call to action. Mark Long writes, she prodded us to be in the world with awareness, imagination, compassion, and agency. She excited our consciences and awakened our emotions, and she offered an invitation to think with poems that wrestle with our commonplaces about the world, honestly and openly, to guide us into the material and spiritual condition of our lives. With our planet's temperature fearfully rising and species endangered or disappearing at an alarming rate, we are worried about the fate of Earth. We have work to do to solve some of the most pressing environmental, economic, health, and social issues of our times. Break your heart open and never close it again to the rest of the world. This is a great challenge in the bruising condition of the world. How to keep our hearts open. Stay connected to the natural world. Mary Oliver reminds us that staying connected to nature in our daily lives, we have a deeper reverence for life. At the heart of her message is that there is goodness in a world that appears otherwise. Seek to connect with nature once every day, even if but briefly. She calls us to find our own voice, to recognize and trust our own voice. It will keep us company on a path to justice, equity, and sustainability. With our own commitment, we can encourage others. Take time to reflect on your own journey, to pause and listen deeply to your own voice. In a rare interview with Krista Tippett, Mary Oliver shared her belief that poetry should be memorized and repeated like prayers. And that's very important, she said, because then it belongs to you. You have it when you need it. Mary Oliver died of lymphoma on January 17th, 2019, at the age of 83. Maybe you want to consider memorizing one of her poems, or a part of a poem, or one line that inspires you to keep your heart open, to find your voice, and to stay on a path to justice, equity, and sustainability.
Despite what it says in your order of service, today we're going to watch and listen to a recording of All of Us, an anthem that was produced and premiered at this year's Unitarian Universalist Ministry for Earth's Earth Day service, which was held on Friday. All of Us was composed by Dana Clark and performed by UUMFE, the UUMFE virtual choir. You may find it hard not to sing along after a little bit, so please feel free. And it's a completely different perspective. The blue sky that was rumored in the forecast this morning has been trying to make an appearance over here. Anyway, it's great to be here. Thanks. My self-assigned tasks this morning are to update you on the climate crisis, suggest a few tangible ways to take meaningful action, and remind you of some tried and true ways to stay sane and healthy in these difficult times, all in about 10 minutes. I spoke with you 2 years ago at the beginning of the pandemic, though I wasn't standing here and you weren't sitting there, unless, of course, a few of you at home on Zoom might have indeed be sitting in exactly the same spot. But my goals then were largely the same as today. So as then, I'll start off with a short review of the science. 2 years ago, we were being told by scientists that we need to reduce carbon emissions by 45% by the year 2030 and to zero by 2050. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or the IPCC, you might hear that in the news, in its 2018 report established a target global temperature increase of 1.5 degrees Celsius. It may not sound like a lot, but the Climate Reality Project summarized it this way a couple years ago. Holding global warming to the target of 1.5 degrees Celsius will be a big ask and require rapid and large-scale transformations of our economies and our development paths. We have a short window to hit this goal, but holding warming to about 1.5 degrees is the difference between a world we can adapt to and one threatening life planet-wide. Now, 2 years later, The climate crisis is still here, of course. Only the problems are bigger and the time frames are shorter. 3 weeks ago, the scientists at the IPCC issued an update that, among other somber things, stated that we must make greenhouse gas emission reductions faster. Roughly speaking, the scientists are now saying that the changes we all needed to do by 2030, which were hard enough, we now need to do by 2025. Okay, enough science for today. That's about all I can take on any given day. But the question looms, how do we live and act with this knowledge? The climate mountain is large, and the road over and to the other side is long and uncertain. But there are many things we can do now that we know will keep us moving up the mountain in the right direction. I wanted to suggest a general goal or strategy for climate action. Electrify everything. One of the takeaways from the recent scientific report, the update, is that humans should no longer purchase any new fossil fuel infrastructure. It is reasonable to translate that at the personal and local levels as something like no new machines that run on fossil fuels. Here are some examples, starting with the easier ones. Electric lawnmowers, weed whackers, chainsaws. They are all available, effective, and price competitive. They're also quieter and healthier. Of course, mowing less lawn or less often would also be a good thing. Electric vehicles, largely the same story as above. Available, effective, and competitive on cost. And once you drive one, you'll never want to go back. New models are appearing all the time. They're on TV. You've watched such things, and many are now available in all-wheel drive for you real Vermonters. There are also more and more used EVs now for sale. EV charging for longer trips, like out of state, that long, is improving all the time, but can still be a concern. If you need to regularly drive out of state, there are plug-in hybrids that let you run on electricity only for shorter trips around town or even to Burlington and back. But then they switch to gas, so you can go on longer trips. No new gas stove tops. Electric alternatives are available and they work better. If you're a gas stove devotee, I invite you to come check ours out. Dinner could be included. Once you test drive one, you'll never want to go back, I promise. Heat pumps are good alternatives for oil or gas furnaces or boilers, and for hot water heaters. But the selection and installation of these equipment can be more complicated and usually require some professional help. One uncomfortable truth, however, is that even if we do all these things, and all the others that I didn't mention, the kinds of things individual consumers can do, it will not be enough to reach the greenhouse gas reduction goals, and it probably won't be close. Some of the necessary changes will require actions beyond what you and I as consumers can do. Policies and decisions at the community, corporate, and political levels will need to change, and change quickly, if we are to get further up the climate mountain. However, there are ways for us, either individually or in groups, like CVUUS perhaps, to get engaged with entities that have the power to make such larger decisions. And we need more people locally to be involved with these kinds of advocacy actions. Here are a few local examples. CVUUS, this church, this building, has scrapped its wood pellet boiler, and we are now heating the buildings with propane. Our facilities team is committed to looking carefully at electric heat pump options, but so far they're very complicated and or very expensive. What are we to do? Folks could volunteer to help figure it out. Middlebury College has recently purchased land in Middlebury to be used for low and moderate income and workforce housing. This presents a great opportunity at the community level to make sure that this new development is net zero in terms of energy and does not install any new fossil fuel infrastructure. But early inquiries suggest it may take quite a lot of attention and advocacy to enable this to happen. Would you like to help with a project like that? The Hannaford Career Center recently received voter approval to upgrade their buildings and systems. They have proposed a new gas-fired boiler. It's unclear whether they even considered electric heat pump options. After almost 2 months of requesting information, I have still not received a single substantive response. Does anyone here know anyone there that might help? And of course, advocacy for different policies needs to happen at the local, state, and federal levels. Letter writing campaigns, maybe? Can you show up at local select board meetings? Climate problems and solutions always involve issues of justice and equity. Are you interested in getting more involved in those? There are many more of these. Trust me. Would you like to be part of a team that Richard and I and a few others are trying to convene to help identify them and work for climate-friendlier solutions? See me later. But I have to say that climate work can be hard and at times frustrating. This mountain I've talked about today is pretty large, and it's too large for me to have confidence that we'll make it to the other side. It's useful to know from the scientists what needs to be done, and it's important to have a dream about what the other side might look like. But on a day-to-day basis, we also need to take care of ourselves, or it's too easy to get very depressed and burned out. These are the kinds of things that work for me. Sing, dance, walk, play games, exercise, plant seeds, tend gardens, interact with people and other beings, be in relationship, be a part of a community. Find ways to bring joy and love to the work. Read Mary Oliver. Two years ago, I included a quote from climate activist and UU minister Tim DeChristopher. It still speaks to me today. He said, I've had a lot of conversations with people about what it means to be too late to stop climate change. And I feel very strongly that it doesn't mean that it's too late to continue to live in love and continue to do the work that we were called to do. The climate crisis will increasingly define the work that humans are called to do. And we must do it even though it's unclear if or how we will make it to the other side of the mountain. It will help immensely if we can do it in community, in relationship, and with love. Thanks. Now, I invite you all to stand. We're going to sing Blue Boat Home. It's number 1064 in the teal hymnal.
Steve, you broke my heart. You've been breaking my heart for 20 years. About, come on. About, come on, Johanna, get with it. You've been slogging this out for 20 years, Steve. And I just love you for that. You're breaking my heart so that it will be open and never close again to the work we have to do in the world. Now, one thing I can promise you is that though I don't have an electric vehicle, I get 3 weeks to a gallon of gas. And I will keep being very mindful of that. Oh, thank you. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being you. Thank you for keeping your hearts wide open when it sometimes just feels like we're going to break. We're not going to. We're going to stick together in this, and we're going to keep climbing that mountain. Blessed be.